All right, picture this. You're on a farm, but instead of that old familiar tractor, you're firing up an algorithm.
Okay, I can see where you're going with this. Sounds a little like we're stepping into a sci-fi movie, right?
Exactly. But the wild part is, this is the reality of modern farming. It's not science fiction, it's happening now.
It really is. What we're talking about is a complete shift, a move towards agriculture that's driven by data, with AI as the real game changer.
And that's what we're diving deep into today. We've got a whole bunch of sources that break down not just what AI is up to in agriculture, but how it's getting ready to tackle a challenge that affects every single one of us. How to feed a planet that's going to hit a mind-blowing 10 billion people by 2050. Can you even imagine?
It's almost impossible to wrap your head around. And the key to actually meeting that demand in a way that doesn't wreck the planet is figuring out how to use data. And that's something that comes up again and again in all the research we're looking at.
Right. It's like farmers are becoming data analysts almost overnight. One of the articles even called it the age of big data in agriculture. Pretty epic when you think about it. But what does all that actually mean on a practical level?
So it's not just about having mountains of data. It's about what you do with it. It's about pulling out the insights that actually mean something. Imagine combining something like satellite images with super localized weather data, down to the zip code, even monitoring the health of individual plants.
Wow, like looking at each leaf on a plant.
Exactly. That kind of detail, that kind of granularity. It was unthinkable a few years ago, but now it's becoming the norm.
So are we basically giving farmers superhuman senses then? Letting them see and understand what's happening on their land in a completely new way?
That's a great way to put it. And it's leading to some pretty remarkable things. Let me give you an example. One of your sources goes really deep on AI's ability to analyze soil, like way beyond what we could do with the old school methods.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What can these AI systems tell us about the dirt beneath our feet that we didn't already know?
We're talking about algorithms that gobble up data on moisture levels in the soil, nutrient content. They can even predict what the weather's going to do weeks out. All of that goes into figuring out the absolute best time for a farmer to plant their crops.
Wow, so no more relying on the farmer's almanac.
Not quite, but we're getting close. The really exciting thing here is the impact it's having. Farmers are seeing potentially a third more yield just from optimizing their planting time based on these AI insights.
A third. Now that's what I call a game changer, especially when you think about how we're going to feed all those extra mouths in the coming decades. Less waste, more food. Who wouldn't be on board with that?
Absolutely. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Wait, there's more. I thought we were just talking about planting. What about all the other stuff farmers have to worry about, like, say, pests and diseases?
Oh, AI has got you covered there, too. One of the articles you shared talked about AI systems using image recognition that's so advanced it can actually spot the very first signs of a disease or a pest infestation.
Hold on, are you serious? Like, before a farmer could even see it with their own eyes?
Exactly. They're using drones and satellites to take these incredibly detailed images of entire farms. And then AI algorithms are analyzing those images, looking for even tiny changes in things like the color of the plants or the texture of the leaves. Changes that a human eye would probably miss, but could be a red flag that something's wrong.
So instead of a farmer walking the fields, we've got these AI eyes in the sky, keeping watch 24/7.
You got it. It's like having a million little scouts out there, constantly on the lookout.
That's wild. And I'm guessing this is all happening right now.
Oh, yeah. It's not some futuristic fantasy. It's happening on farms around the world as we speak.
This is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
What else did you come across in your research? What else are these AI systems capable of?
One term that kept popping up was precision farming. It's basically using technology to fine-tune every single aspect of how you manage a farm.
I've heard that term thrown around before, but I've got to be honest, it's always sounded a bit vague to me. What does it actually look like in action? Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine this. Instead of treating your whole field the exact same way, you've got sensors, GPS, and AI working together to give you a detailed picture of each section. They're tracking the health of the plants, monitoring the soil, even keeping tabs on microclimates within the field.
Microclimates, you mean like one corner of the field might be slightly warmer or wetter than another?
Exactly. And with precision farming, you can adjust your approach accordingly.
So if one part of the field needs a bit more water, the AI can tell the irrigation system to focus on that area.
You got it. And if there's a risk of disease in another section, you can target your treatments very precisely, so you're not wasting resources on areas that don't need it. It's all about maximizing efficiency and minimizing waste.
So instead of that one-size-fits-all approach, we're moving towards farming that's personalized,
Yeah.
almost tailor-made for each plant.
Exactly. And here's a cool example. AI can now actually help farmers figure out the absolute best day to harvest their crops to make the most profit. They've got apps that analyze all the factors, how ripe the crops are, the weather forecast, even the market prices, to tell you the perfect time to bring in the harvest.
Wow, that's incredible. Talk about taking the guesswork out of farming. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Went from tractors to algorithms, from gut feelings to data points. It's pretty clear that AI is turning farming on its head, but I'm curious, what does this actually look like out in the real world? What kind of impact are we seeing on actual farms?
Well, that's one of the most exciting things about this whole field. It's not just theory, it's actually happening right now. There are farms all over the globe using AI to grow food in ways we never thought possible.
Got any examples?
Absolutely. One that's particularly relevant given, everything that's going on with water these days is how AI is being used to totally revolutionize irrigation.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Oh.
Water is such a precious resource, especially with climate change making things more unpredictable.
Exactly. And some really innovative startups, particularly in the US and Israel, are using AI to develop systems that use sensors to constantly keep track of the moisture levels in the soil. Like they're monitoring every little change.
Wow, so they know exactly how much water each plant needs at any given moment.
That's the idea. And they're also looking at microclimate conditions, even predicting rainfall patterns so they don't water when they don't need to.
That's incredible. So these systems are like, hold on a sec, looks like rain next Tuesday. Let's hold off on the watering for now.
Pretty much. And all of that data gets fed into these AI-controlled drip irrigation systems that deliver water directly to the plant roots. No waste.
Talk about efficiency. And that's good for the environment, too. Less water wasted means more water for everyone else.
Exactly. And the source you shared had this really interesting example from India about how AI is being used to help small farmers.
Oh, yeah. What was that about?
So they've developed mobile apps that give these farmers personalized advice on all sorts of things, weather forecasting, pest control, even stuff like soil health and market prices.
It's amazing how this technology isn't just for those big industrial farms. It's accessible to pretty much anyone with a smartphone. Have they seen good results with these apps?
Oh, yeah. The article mentioned that in some places, farmers using these AI apps have seen their yields go up by as much as 15%.
Like 15%? That's huge.
It is. And get this, at the same time, they've reduced their water and fertilizer use by up to 20%. Talk about a win-win.
That's a powerful story. It shows how AI can make farming more productive and more sustainable at the same time. And it's not just about the technology itself. It's about who has access to it and how it can be used to level the playing field.
This is such a fascinating deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground here today.
I know, right? It's amazing to think about how much things have changed. Like, we've gone from those big clunky tractors to algorithms that can practically predict the future, from farmers relying on intuition to having these AI-powered tools right there on their phones. It feels like we're on the verge of something really big.
It really does, doesn't it? Like a revolution in agriculture is about to kick off.
Totally. But like with any revolution, I guess we have to ask some tough questions too, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've been focusing on all the amazing things AI can do for farming, and it's pretty easy to get swept up in all the excitement. But what about the other side of the coin? What could go wrong?
Oh, for sure. There are always potential downsides. I mean, the articles we've been discussing paint a very optimistic picture.
And rightfully so, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like AI could solve some huge problems we're facing.
Right, exactly. But it's important to remember that no technology is perfect, right? And the more we depend on AI in agriculture, the more careful we need to be. There are risks and challenges that we can't just ignore.
So what are some of those potential downsides? Like, what kind of things should we be keeping an eye on?
Well, one big concern is access. Like, we've talked about how AI can empower small farmers, which is amazing. But there's a real risk that these technologies could actually end up widening the gap between those small farms and the giant industrial ones.
Because the little guys might not be able to afford these new tools.
Exactly. If only the big farms with tons of money can implement AI, it could create even more inequality in agriculture.
That's a really good point. So how do we prevent that?
That's the million-dollar question. It's crucial that we make sure these technologies are accessible and affordable for everyone, not just a select few.
Right. Otherwise, it's like we're creating a whole new set of problems. Are there other concerns besides access?
Absolutely. Another thing to consider is the potential for, well, unintended consequences.
You mean like, what if the AI messes up?
Exactly. What happens if there's a glitch in the system? We're talking about systems that are making decisions about our food supply. Even a small error could snowball into a big problem.
It's like, we might have all these fancy algorithms, but we still need humans involved to make sure things don't go haywire.
100%. We need to make sure farmers have the knowledge and skills to work with these technologies, not just rely on them blindly.
So, like a partnership between farmers and AI, rather than one replacing the other.
Exactly. And then there are the bigger ethical questions we need to be thinking about.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, as AI gets more and more involved in agriculture, we need to talk about things like data privacy. Who owns all that data about our farms? And what about algorithmic bias?
Algorithmic bias. How could that play into something like farming?
Well, if the AI systems are trained on data that's biased in some way, they might make decisions that are unfair to certain groups of farmers or certain types of crops.
That makes sense. And is there anything else?
Yeah, we also need to think about the impact on jobs. If AI takes over more tasks on the farm, could it lead to fewer jobs for farm workers?
Man, these are some really big questions.
They are, but they're questions we need to be having right now.
Totally. So basically, AI has the potential to totally transform agriculture for the better, but it's not a magic solution.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool, but we have to use it responsibly and carefully think about its impact on everyone and everything.
Well said. Well, that was quite a deep dive, wasn't it?
It really was.
And to our listeners out there, I'll leave you with this. As we move into this future of AI-powered farms, what role do you see for yourselves? Will you be a farmer who embraces these new technologies, a consumer demanding to know more about where your food comes from, or a citizen pushing for ethical and responsible AI development? The choices we make today will shape the future of agriculture for generations to come. So let's make them wisely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.